You know how I always forget to do that. All right, I'm going to start now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our September New Jersey Business and Industry Association Business Growth Roundtable. I'm going to hand it to the fabulous Katie Whitcamp to give us some updates on what's going on at NJBIA.
Thank you so much, Donna. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us at the New Jersey Business and Industry Association's Sales and Marketing Roundtable. We at NJBIA are thrilled to have helped in the creation of this amazing group led by such amazing individuals. For those of you who are new to NJBIA, we are the largest statewide business association in the country, representing about 1 million jobs in the state of New Jersey, which is approximately 1/4 of all New Jersey employees. We offer customer development opportunities, visibility through events, magazine ads, a podcast, and TV show. We also have money-saving discounts on stuff you're probably already paying for, like healthcare, payroll, 401k solution, and 24/7 HR support. I'm Katie Whitcamp with the Business Development team, and if you're interested in more info on us, I'll drop the website into the chat along with my contact info. Feel free to be in touch, and we can get you whatever you need. And with that, I'm now going to toss it back to Donna.
Well, thank you, Katie, and let me bring Lorena Mascara from Paradigm Marketing and Design to the stage, my co-host in this roundtable, which, by the way, we are in our 3rd year, and this is now episode 27. Oh my goodness.
This is
Lorena.
awesome. Hi, everyone. I am Lorena Mosqueda with Paradigm Marketing and Design. I am the workflow strategist. And so that means that I deal everything that has to do with data and CRM. I am a true data geek. I'm so thrilled to be here today. And I want to talk to you a little bit about our sponsors. First, I want to mention Crothers Consulting. If you don't know, Laura Crothers started Crothers Consulting to help leaders gain clarity about people, leadership, and culture. 12 years later, the Crothers team of 25 provide a creative and unique way of training rising managers and leaders across the U.S., increasing their leadership effectiveness. Leaders and HR teams rely on Crothers fractional HR leadership to understand the nuances of high-growth organizations as they design HR programs and fine-tune practices. So if you haven't talked to her, make sure you schedule that one-to-one with her because she's really got a wealth of information. The second sponsor I want to share with you is Kim Luthi. Kim Luthi is a director of wealth planning at Synthesis Wealth Planning. She's a close friend of mine, and I absolutely love her genius. For the last 30 plus years, Kim has dedicated herself to empowering clients to control their own destiny. A highly qualified professional with, again, about more than 33 years of experience, she has earned her Certified Financial Planner designation, known as the CFP, which illustrates her completion of the rigorous experience and ethical requirements of the CFP board. In addition to her CFP designation, Kim has earned the professional designation, a certified fund specialist, certified in long-term care, and is a registered representative holding her life, accident, health, and long-term care insurance across multiple states. Kim is also a certified divorce financial analyst, and that means that she is able to provide financial information and assistance to people going through divorce. It is essential for Kim to be able to help avoid common financial pitfalls of divorce by offering insight into the pros and cons of different settlements, serving as her financial advisor. So again, thank you to both Kim Luthi, the Director of Wealth Planning with Synthesis Wealth Planning, and to Leather Crothers from Crothers Consulting. And I'm so excited to be here. I can't wait for today's topic.
Thank you, Lorena. So again, I'm Donna Miller. I am Chief Visionary Officer at C3 Workplace and founder of Donna Miller Business Growth Consulting. And for nearly 30 years, which is impossible to believe, we've been helping companies to accelerate their growth by providing support and advisory services around operations, business development, and finance. We allow growing teams and the business owner to work smarter by focusing on that which actually drives the business forward instead of all that back office stuff. Our clients know that by bringing us in to build systems that are efficient, connected, and executable, they are laying the foundation for a company that will, wait for it, run and grow without them involved in every little detail. Want to build a self-scaling business? We need to talk. You'll get all my information in the follow-ups, and most of you know me. So a little bit of housekeeping before I bring our presenters to the stage today. First of all, this is being recorded. I want to encourage you, this is virtual networking. Use the chat window to introduce yourself, to connect with your fellow participants here. We will allow time at the end of Dave's presentation for Q&A, and we will do our best to make it interactive throughout the presentation. Please, for the sake of managing a group this size, put your questions in the Q&A segment as opposed to the chat window. It will just help us do the best possible job of getting to each of you. And our goal here is always about bringing value to you. Now, one more thing. We have a great lineup for the rest of the year. And when I'm done speaking, I'll drop some registration links into the chat. But on October 10th, now, the New Jersey Business and Industry Business Growth Roundtable, we are here the second Tuesday of every month. I'd like to suggest you set that up as a recurring event on your calendar. In October 10th, the Paradigm team will be talking to us about crisp messaging for clear impact. 6 steps to develop a compelling message brand, something we all need to revisit and make sure we are hitting that one exactly where we need to. In November, we are going to talk about preparing for year end and knowing your numbers and data analytics. And then in December, which has become an annual tradition, we will be doing our economic outlook. So watch your chat window for registration links for all of those. And with that, let me bring Cal Thomas to the stage. Cal, if you would join me. Cal is the president of Sandler Training, Northern New Jersey. And Sandler is a management, sales, and customer training organization. Now, quick story, 2008, the world as we know it comes to a screeching halt. I'm sitting there, nobody's making a decision. I've got empty offices and I've got a little money in the bank, which I was planning on having some fun with. I had a different kind of fun. I decided I could do nothing about what was going on around me, but I could improve my sales process. I spent a year in Sandler's President's Club, and it changed my life professionally. And honestly, it's really a communication program. So it helps you personally as well. I firmly believe in what Cal and his team does, and I'm delighted to welcome Cal to the stage and to thank him for being a long-term sponsor of this Business Growth Roundtable. So thank you, Cal.
Thank you, Donna. It's always tough to be introduced because now you got to live up to it, and that's tough. And love working with Donna and her team, and also the team at Paradigm. And by the way, I looked at the list of attendees, and I want to thank all the people out there who have been Sandler clients for years and trusting us with professional development and the sales development of your teams. So enough about me. I am thrilled, I guess, but it's certainly my pleasure to introduce Dave Mattson, who is the president and CEO of Sandler Training Worldwide. Good morning, Dave.
Morning. How are you?
All right.
Morning.
So Dave started his journey in a similar place, which you might not believe, to a lot of the people in the audience today. He was in a sales role, sales-related job, and then I became a Sandler client, and now he's CEO of a global large organization. Typical career path, I think.
Yeah.
He's also a best-selling author of many books, and I know his mother's here today, so I'm not going to bore her with a list of them because I'm sure she's got them all. And in spite of Dave's CD disc style, and I think most of you know about disc, he in fact is an internationally sought after keynote speaker, and as you know, an industry thought leader. So over the many years I've known Dave, he has been probably one of the hardest working people I think I've ever met. And I come to understand that his golf game reflects that as well. But from the books to the speaking and to really driving the Sandler organization as a whole to be on the leading edge of the behavior, the attitude, and techniques that we help our clients with and help them grow. Dave has just been a phenomenal leader and really, I would say, certainly a visionary in the industry with regard to sales leadership, and business growth, which frankly brings us to our topic today, which is about adapt now to what's been changing in the sales environment, the sales leadership environment, because it's changing fast. I'm certainly seeing it. Our clients are seeing it. Donna and Rachel and Loretta, you're seeing, and I know all the people in the audience. So with that, Dave, why don't you just take it away and show is yours.
Well, thanks, Cal. Thanks for having me. And Donna, if I think back, this is the 27th episode. I think we were together on episode 1, actually, live.
You did help us debut the roundtable, so we thank
That's
you
right,
for
that
that,
was
and we
live.
thank you for this. Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you. And thank you for being a Sandler client. Yeah, listen, I'm big fans of the organization, and you may not know it because you're in the organization, but I can tell you, since I do have the opportunity to travel, there is no other organization that I've run into that does as much for its members as what Katie and everyone else has been really doing. And it's just amazing to me. So I'm happy to be here. Listen, Cal said it, right? We're talking about lots of different changes that are going on in the marketplace, and I don't actually see it changing. And there's lots of changes coming from many different areas. If I look at, what's going on in the marketplace, I've got a good friend, Frank Cespedes. He heads up the entrepreneurial program up at Harvard. And Sandler's content's embedded in Harvard, and I've got to know him over time, and he's done many, many books. And in the latest book that he had, it was something that stuck out for me, which is says, listen, during a pandemic, many people think that innovation is the thing that comes out on the opposite side of a pandemic, but it's not really innovation, it's acceleration. And I had to really sit back and think about that. I'm like, well, are you sure, Frank? I mean, do you think this one slipped by you? But if you really do sit back and think about all the things that we're using, like even, today we're on a virtual call, we have a virtual meeting together. First time we were together with the organization, I was face to face. And so did Teams, did Zoom, did all of this technology, these platforms just happen? No, they've been there for a long, long time, except now it's part of our DNA. It's part of our muscle memory, because it just becomes one of those things that you have to implement in order to survive and thrive in today's environment. So acceleration, I do agree with that point of view. And I don't think it's going to change. As I said, what I want to share with you today are some of the things that we have seen going on over the last 6 months, over the last year. Why? Because, well, listen, at Sandler, I have an advantage. The advantage for us is that we're in 31 different countries. We work with 50,000 different organizations per year. So different size organizations with different products and services, different sales approaches, all of the mixture just goes on and on and on. But there are trends, and I want to share with you 3 things that I've witnessed based on all the observations that I've seen. And then what can we do as entrepreneurs? What could we do as leaders to offset some of the point of view that I'm going to share with you? Now, people say, well, I could share lots of points of view depending on the topic, but we're going to stay with performance. So what I'm going to share with you are some of the gaps that I see out there based on all the things that are happening. And so we talk about all the things that are happening. But if you really think about this, and some people call it a perfect storm, look at all the things that are changing at such a rapid pace. Technology, as an example. The amount of technology that's coming into the sales space, that's coming into the business space, is unprecedented. I mean, it's just amazing how many new apps, new programs are popping out on a daily basis. The amount of calls that I get is it's overwhelming if you think about it. And how do we use that in the flow of work? And so I think we're going to talk a little bit about that. And Lorena is an expert in that. So how do you make sure that technology is connected with all the other things that we're doing day in and day out? And so we're talking about that. We're talking about talent. If you think about the challenges in talent today, finding good people at a reasonable price is really hard. And with the remote workforce, you've got 2 sides of remote if you think about it, right? We're selling and managing remotely, but we're certainly then working within our own teams on a remote thing. And I'm sure you've had many sessions on remote selling, remote management, and really just dealing with what does it look like for a new hire? If you think about in today's world, I just feel terrible if you think about all the newer people coming into our organization, if we're not together. And it's tough to collaborate. It's tough to share best practices. It's tough to onboard people. And it's also tough to connect with our buyers if we go outside of our current employees and think about how we interact with our customers, our clients, our buyers. It's really hard. The days of making an outbound call, people picking up on the other side, doesn't happen as often as it used to, right? We're really leveraging technology today to get people to interact. even the supply chain, you would have thought that we would kind of have that sorted out by now, but still we're all fighting to make sure that we have the appropriate supplies, we have the appropriate people, the talent, to make sure that we're putting together what was sold, we can actually deliver upon that. And certainly money, the economy is something that, you know, we all kind of dance around a little bit, but certainly the interest rates have caused money to be more expensive, which means that decisions have changed, the way we make decisions and what we're making decisions on. And I'll talk about that in a second or two. But I think overall, there's not much that hasn't changed if you think about it, right? The buyer journey has changed. Everything is changing around us. And I've seen it, and I know you've seen it. The other thing that's kind of changing is how we're interacting between the buyer and the seller, right? So if you kind of look at all the stats that are coming out now, so 72% of the B2B buyers are saying, hey, I'd love a rep-free experience. Well, think about that for a second. What does that mean exactly, a rep-free experience? Well, if I think about the way that I buy on my own these days, it's probably true. Now, that doesn't mean that we're never going to interact with salespeople. That doesn't mean salespeople are going to go away. I certainly think if you're just purely doing transactional, do you have certain things to worry about? Probably. Just this week, I heard an avatar, make a phone call to me. It was a Sandler-based phone call. It was an avatar. Didn't really notice it was an avatar, and it made an outbound cold call. Amazing. Now, we're not there yet. I'll give that a C+, B- if I had to give it a grade as I listen to it. But it's only a matter of time. Just think about all the things that have happened since ChatGPT's come out. I mean, it's just amazing how fast things are occurring. But if you really kind of sit back, we all look and buy. I buy in the middle of the evening. So to me, I'm not avoiding salespeople. I love salespeople. I'm in a salespeople development business. So it's not that I'm hiding from them. It's that at 2 o'clock in the morning, I would just go online, and Amazon has taught me that I could go when I want, look for what I want, and I expect it to be here the very next day. So the expectations that have been set by an Amazon has really just forced me to buy differently. And I'm not avoiding the salespeople. I'm just trying to maximize my time, really, is how that works. I've got 5 children. And, more people are on the internet. We've heard all the stats about how far people are, investigating before they get salespeople involved. But with 5 kids, they are like medical doctors. They've got their degree from Google. Because every time they have some ailment, that could be a slight cough, next thing you know, they're Googling. They've come up with all these reasons why they're coughing. Most of them are terminal. And so it gets blown out of proportion, but they self-prescribe. And then they go to find all these solutions. And I, as much as I give them a hard time, I actually find myself doing the same types of thing. I say, well, I've got this problem at work, and chances are I think this is probably it. And then I start to investigate. Now, the challenge is when I do get a rep involved is I have to make sure that I'm dealing with a problem and not a symptom. But that's a whole different topic for a different day. But the fact of the matter is the trend is, how do we do more with less interaction? Now, look, outside of time, which is the reason why that's probably true for me, others are just in self-protection mode. I mean, if you think about it, and if I said, hey, what's the first couple, 3 or 4 words that I say when I say salesperson, what would you say? Most of them aren't flattering, right? Most of them aren't, hey, they really do good for society. I don't probably hear that on the top one, because the movie industry and all the books, they don't paint us in the best of light. So some of it is just self-protection. And I get that, right? We have caused that problem over time. Salespeople and this buyer-seller, friction that's always been there. So I get that as well. But there's other things that are changing as well. If you just think about, what Gartner puts out is the complexity of the whole decision process, and the buying complexity is just amazing, and it's true. So it doesn't matter if you're selling into a enterprise type client or a small entrepreneur, it's complex. You've got a lot of players in there. What I have witnessed when it comes to decisions and buying process is that decisions are more conservative recently. And again, I'm sure it's tied to the economy. When money's more expensive and you're trying to wait, is it really done? Is it a soft landing? Do we look at 24? It's going to be something that we could start, taking a deep breath and it's okay, we're back to normal. Or is the shoe going to drop on the other, where are we? What's going to happen with commercial real estate? I mean, there's 1,000 questions going on. So we do take a conservative view, and I witness it with all these types of sales calls that, we get to witness across the world. I also think that in the decision process, there's more people involved now. And that really wasn't the case. If you think about just a couple of years ago, if you wanted to be on a committee, you would have to fly somewhere and be part of the committee. It was rare that we were all doing it virtually. And by default, because no one wanted to give up a day, maybe 2 days of travel, they said, listen, I will buy into whatever the committee says, whatever this group thinks is good enough for me as well. I have my trust. I place my trust into you. Well, now they're saying, hey, give me an invite. I'm going to just pop up into Zoom. So they've invested now 45 minutes on that versus a day and a half. So there's more people involved. I think companies are also making more enterprise decisions versus siloed decisions. Like in my world, as an example, it wasn't unusual for people to buy management training or sales training by group, by division, by department. But really, that's not the same any longer. They're saying, hey, we should think about how do we simplify our world as buyers. We should be looking for one global partner, not 5, 6, or 50 or 60. How do we do that? So there's a lot of things that are changing out there. So because we have all these changes that I've talked about, I want to share with you, as I said, 3 points of view. And these points of view are things that I've witnessed, and I'm going to share with you what you could do to offset some of these gaps that I've witnessed. So first big one is, look, today's more complex buyer journeys along with the sales landscape requires a new breed of salespeople. What does that mean? Well, if you fast forward, what it took to be successful a year ago doesn't necessarily translate to success as we move forward. And you're seeing more and more of that. As I talk to owners, as I talk to sales leaders, they're saying, David, it's getting harder to do X. It's more difficult to do Y. Things are changing, and it's true. It is true. So do I think that we have to get a whole new sales force? No, but I do think it's going to take a different skill set to thrive in tomorrow's environment than it did in yesterday's environment. I also think that there are persistent skill gaps within our sales organizations. And those skill gaps are getting wider and wider, and it's happening faster and faster. Why? Well, again, because the buyer journey is changing at a rapid pace, technology is changing. There's so many things going on that we just talked about that these skill gaps, if we're not helping our people figure out what does it take to thrive in tomorrow's environment, we're going to get left behind because we're skilled for yesterday. We have to reskill our teams to get them to have all of the skills and experiences necessary to thrive in the future. So I think that's there. I think the talent roller coaster, finding good talent, teaching them the skills that are necessary for not just today, but as I said, for tomorrow, that is really hard. I think most companies are falling short in those two areas by either not onboarding properly, not recruiting the right types of people for tomorrow, and they're just recruiting the same types of skills that were necessary for last year, maybe 2 years ago, maybe even 6 months ago. So I think we just have to be aware that that environment's changing. So therefore, we have to change as organizations. They say, and I don't know if we're there yet, but if you really think about the technology part, it's going to end up being the fact that you've got about 30% of our time is going to be freed up based on technology. Now, we could all say, what's that about? I don't get 30% of free time. And that's true. I would buy into that. I think that's a bit of a future cast, but I do believe, and I think it's true for all of us, that we are more effective and more efficient because we're leveraging technology than we were. Now, the question is, what do we do with that free time? Well, what we should be doing with that free time is to make sure that we're increasing our customer-facing activities. And you really should probably be doing that by tenfold. We've been taught over the last year or two to hide behind technology, to hide behind email. But if we have the ability, if we freed up some time, we've got to find a way to connect with our buyers, right? To have that stickiness, because at the end of the day, people still buy from people, right? And I know everyone's worried about, hey, do you think salespeople will disappear? Do you think managers are disappearing? I don't. Certainly not in my lifetime, but it will happen in bits and pieces for sure. And then the other one that you see here is, look, I think people that are across the revenue generating machine in your organizations, they should have the same process, the same tools, and the same methodology. I don't care what it is, actually, but if you really think about it, they're hunting in teams. People are buying in teams. We have to sell in teams as well. In order to do that, we should have a consistent playbook. Think about that graph now, and you sit back and say, okay, well, if this is this complex, buying process, how do we actually go into sell? And most organizations have different types of people who are touching prospects, touching our buyers, touching our clients at different times, right? You may have an AE who then hands it off to, or a BD, SDR hands it off to an AE. Maybe then it goes to an enterprise salesperson. You've got a sales leader involved. You've got pre-sales. You could have engineers involved, depending on what you're selling. You've got customer success if you're a SaaS company. I mean, there's a lot of people going on here, right? Account managers, potentially. Lots of different functions within an organization that are aiding that buyer journey. Now, if you think about it, if we're all doing something different, which is happening more and more, then that's trouble. Think about if you were all in a, which is even use football since it's the season, you don't get in a huddle and say, listen, all of you are going to be talking to our customers. It's very important for the company that we do this well. All right, bring us your best. On 3, let's break. Break. No. If we're doing that, then I think we're leaving a lot on the table. You would think that if we're all talking the same language, it would be a much better experience for our buyer, much more productive for the seller. As I said, just as a side story, my son is a BD, SDR. So basically, he's a business developer. And you would think in his company, he's a genius, but he's doing the most simplest things. What does that mean? He's actually, doing a proper handoff between the BD and the AE. You would say, well, doesn't that make sense? But 9 out of 10 companies don't do that. So by just explaining, this is what I talked to them about, this is what they're experiencing, here's what's coming up, here are their top 2, 3 pain points. That simple stuff doesn't exist. And when you do it, you stick out like he is, but it's simple stuff. We should be speaking the same language, but there's no connection between a BD and an AE and an enterprise. And then the sales manager comes in and does their whole thing. There's so much time compression that people don't have time to sit and make sure we're doing it the right way. Okay, well, guess what? It makes it much easier if we're not on the same page as far as philosophy or tools. So those are really important. You heard me also talk about, all right, well, it's changing and there's huge skill gaps out there and they're getting wider and it's happening faster and faster. What am I going to do about that? Well, here's another suggestion for you. Top organizations are reassessing their teams. It doesn't matter to me what assessment that you use. Most of us have assessed people as they come into the organization to see if they fit. That's awesome. But assessing shouldn't be one and done. Because of all the things that are going on that we've talked about, I suggest that you assess the team and say, where are our skill gaps based on where the team is today? What do we think those skills are going to be necessary for tomorrow? What experiences and what results are we looking for from our people? And then once you can paint that profile of success, then it's easy as you've assessed your team, you know where the skill gaps are. You also have assessed the individual. So now I can work on my team, but I also can give this individual whatever help they need. Most people just focus on the team. I'm suggesting to you, in order to thrive in today's environment, yes, assess the team, absolutely. But focus on those individuals because individuals make up teams, right? Most organizations forget that. But it also does something else. If you're going to reassess your organization, you have now a launching pad for hiring, because once you create that success profile of what does it take to succeed in our company in today and tomorrow's environment, then you can hire to that. and you can onboard to those skills. And it makes it much easier for those who are tracking the time to hire to the time to profitability. That time gap will shrink if you're assessing and hiring people that have the skills necessary, so you don't have to start at ground zero. That's one of the things that I would say to you, hey, get that done as quickly as possible. The other thing that I suggest, and we've all seen it, we already know 72% of the reps don't, or 72% of the buyers don't want to deal with reps. We just heard that. Well, 68% say, I'm going to wait until the very last minute to get them involved, which is probably true. And you have to decide based on your own buying styles, is that true for you? But this statistics has run long enough and it's been beaten up. It is true. What sticks out for me is really understanding the buyer journey. You really have to understand the buyer journey. Now, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this, because if you really think about it, look, there's some macro steps to the buyer journey, right? You've got engagement, you've got consideration, you've got decision, you've got advocacy. That's great. But if I was sitting on the other end, I would say, well, what does that mean to me? And that's really the connection that you have to make. You've got to say, okay, if I understand there is the buyer journey, I have to understand what is that for my buyers, because the buyer journey that your people follow may be the same as my prospects. It probably is from a macro perspective. They're following those 4 steps. But what they do in those steps is dramatically different depending on what they're buying, right? And where they are. So you have to better understand what that is for your ecosystem and then start to message properly. And so, Donna, I know you're involved in marketing. You do an awesome job. Cal, I'd love your input here when it's talking about really matching the messaging based on where they are in that journey. What are you seeing?
So from my perspective, I'm going to back up one quickly, Dave. And what we found, we got a large technology client here in New Jersey, and you're exactly right. The prospects are coming with all kinds of ideas and all kinds of solutions they believe are fitting the program, the problem. What the problem had been is the technology people there are coming in with solutions very quickly. Yep. And the salespeople are solutioning too quickly. And what we've been able to figure out is tap the brakes. We've got to take these buyers back a few steps in their journey, because we have to ask them more questions, because the question or the problem they come with is very often not really the problem they have. So these guys have done a pretty good job at stopping the prospect, slowing down the meetings, and asking more questions to figure out, where is it a data analytics problem? Is it a managed service? What really is the problem and the pain that you're suffering? So we can get you back. I know 68% of you didn't want to involve us, but that's too bad now. And that's the skills gap also. Right. They didn't have the skills to shut up, stop giving a solution, and ask questions.
Right.
The way you worded that, by the way, I just had to chime in, is 100% on, because you even said something on the chat. They're really looking for a solution and a quick fix, and it's not happening overnight. Change is really hard. Change takes time. I've got a couple of clients on this call, and I'm sure they'll vouch for the fact that they have a love-hate relationship with me when I implement those systems, because you kind of have to take a little bit of a step back, figure out the why and the how before you can kind of get into the actual doing. So 100% saying that much more.
Well, I think when the technology has allowed us to self-prescribe, as you say, right, and we tend to deal with the wrong thing. And I'll give you just a personal story. I had a car accident a number of years ago, and I had a bad back issue that wouldn't go away. And I said, it's time. I'm going to have to go have an operation. And so I've convinced myself I was working on the symptom, which of course was my back. And then when I went to somebody, they said, hey, I noticed you have, your caps are really tight. 45 minutes later, I had no back problems. I was willing to go have an operation for my back. I had convinced myself that was it, Cal, when in reality, it was not that at all. To your point, I was working on the symptom, not the real issue, right? Because the real issue is typically upstream 3 or 4 steps. But it manifests itself down here, and that's what I was dealing with, as much as many business owners deal with the same thing. We have a closing problem. Okay, is it closing, or do you really have a qualification problem upstream, as an example? So I think we just have to pay attention to that, and we have to make sure that we're matching those messages, Don. And I know you spent a lot of time on that, but we've got to make sure that we've tailored the message to where they are in the process and not just show up and throw up everything. Fair?
Absolutely. And what I was going to add to that is exactly that point, Dave. If they're 68% along the way, in our 32% that we have with them, I think our first job is to get them back to the beginning.
Right.
Because what they've decided they need, in my experience, if I get to take the time and go through the process with them and the diagnosis, what they come to me wanting isn't often what they need. And the beauty of that is it takes skill and training to be able to do that. Thank you, Sandler training. But you're demonstrating to them during your prospecting process how you will deliver your services to them as well. So
Sure.
it's difficult, but it creates tremendous credibility, which I think that is one of those things we're not going to see AI do. That's always going to be the job of the consultant who is creating a solution.
Absolutely. Listen, I think it takes guts to do that. I think sometimes salespeople have happy years when somebody says, hey, I'm glad you're here. This is the problem. I want you to do it. You're like, whoa, thank you. A, I got to talk to somebody, and B, somebody wants to talk to me. And so this is awesome. And so you just got to jump in. And then when you're done with this $1 million presentation, so what do you think? You want to buy today? And they're like, no. And you're like right back to normal again. So I think we have to, as leaders, first of all, we have to help our people slow down in order to move forward. Be that consultant. And once people have that opportunity to talk things through and realize through your questions, and here's something, Cal will teach in the course, which is the value of salespeople is determined by the information they gather, not dispense. And that is so true in this phase, is we've got to make sure that we're gathering information so we can give the right diagnosis, because, giving premature diagnosis is called malpractice. And that's sometimes we get stuck with that. We got to be super, super careful with that. So let's talk about another point of view, just from a timing perspective. We could speak all day on point of view number one, which is, hey, look, technology needs to work in conjunction with sales. And if it doesn't, your sales department is going to perish. In the old days, we would say, okay, well, marketing has to be connected with sales. We got to make sure that they're connected. And there's been friction since day one, right? But if you add the trifecta now, what I'm saying is you've got to have technology, sales, and of course, marketing all working together, right? Seamless, more so now than ever. We certainly know AI is a big topic. Everybody wants AI. AI is going to change my life. I can get rid of my sales force with AI. I can get rid of my research department. I mean, we've all conjured up how it's going to save our lives. And the fact is, it is going to play a part in what I would say the front end of the funnel. You're going to have it playing an active part in research. You're going to have, when it comes to pre-call planners, and it comes to identifying different types of buyers and all that stuff, it's true. Now, we're going to talk a little about that, because I think the other thing that has to happen is that you have to integrate, and this is the thing I really would love you to make sure that you're doing. You have to integrate whatever methodology that you're using or sales approach with technology. If you keep them separated, you've leveraged nothing. You actually have false hope. So for instance, you could buy an auto dialer. I'll do something very simpler and say, well, oh my gosh, they can get 12 people an hour on the line. They dial 100 names an hour. It's phenomenal. Why aren't my people getting any appointments? That auto dialer thing is terrible. Well, it's not necessarily. It's because you don't have the right script. Or even think about Vidyard. I'll even use that. Vidyard by itself is awesome. Right? You have a higher probability of getting an appointment using Vidyard than you would say maybe just an email. Okay, so they've proved that out 6 ways to Sunday. And that's great. But what happens if you put on your methodology, whatever you're using, right? Put your methodology on top of it. How cool would it be to just, yes, have Vidyard, but have the right type of message targeted for that person with their pain points, with the right call to action? Do you think email would be here? Vidyard by itself would be here as far as success? Increasing your methodology, putting it in there as one, wow, those results really go up. And that's how you're going to power that technology. And so many organizations throw tech at it and saying, well, listen, I've got XYZ. It should be working. The salespeople obviously aren't either skilled or this technology is terrible. There's a million reasons why they come up with it. But the fact of the matter is it has to be integrated. Lorena, you're off camera. I know you're dying. What do you,
I'm
what
just
do you
going to
want
say,
to say?
she's going to take my powers away a video. I know that. But I'm just going to say, Cal does this so well when you're talking about layering the methodology on top of it. So
Yeah.
any client that Cal and I have ever had together, that is exactly what we've done. Because when we say just the technology by itself, it doesn't work. But when he builds that script and helps them create that behavior that they need to have, that they want to enable and
Right.
leverage the technology to enhance the human behavior, it's a knockout. And now I'm really going to shut up. But that's
It's amazing. No, well, but you're also going to chime in on the next one, which is I do believe technology has to be in the flow of work, right? It's got to be when you want things, has to be when you want it, where you want it. It can't be out here in left field where I've got to leave a system to go to another system. Chances are only 3% of your sellers are in a system anyways. I mean, stop fooling who, right? I mean, everyone says, oh, 100% compliance on CRM. What company you work for?
If it's not relatable, repeatable,
Yeah,
it's
not happening.
Reliable.
Exactly.
It's just not going to work.
Exactly. So where is it playing a part, right? So we can talk about AI, but it's obvious it's going to play pre-funnel, funnel, right? Post-funnel. We'll kind of break these down, but all the execs out there are saying, yeah, I get it. AI for my company, AI for whoever's talking. I think that's front of the funnel. And you can see where they believe, and it's true, I do think it's going to be in the front of the funnel. I think you're going to have, look, we're using AI for lead identification. We're using it for prospecting, for research. It's not targeting our pitches, making sure that our pitches are on target, which I'll explain to you in a second. But even buyer intent, technology's now allowed me to figure out how to change the way I communicate as a seller. So I'm a huge fan, Cal and Donna both brought up DISC. I'm a DC, which means I stay big picture, then I'll go down to detail. I just want to cut to the chase. Don't want to spend 45 minutes talking about my weekend. Don't want to talk about, if you give me a referral, hey, Fred Smith uses this. I'm thinking Fred Smith must be related to you in some way, shape, or fashion. So when I say to myself, I don't care what Fred says, I'll make my own decision. So that's my personality type, right? And so if you're showing up with jokes and you're that type of person, which is awesome, we're doing this. Like, oh my goodness, great. Hey, listen, what you're saying sounds awesome. I had like this emergency come up today. I'm gonna have to cut it short. Would you be nice enough to put what you're saying in writing and just send it off to me? And I'm gonna bring it over to a super secret committee that doesn't exist. And I'm gonna come back and probably tell you I need more free consulting. I mean, I don't say it that way, but that's really what's happening, right? If you think about it. And so what does this do? This immediately can tell you who's Dave and how are you going to connect with Dave. So I love Humantic as a piece of technology, but you could use Crystal Nodes. There's a bunch of them. It says, here's how you need to talk to Dave. Here's what you should do and here's what you shouldn't do. And here's how you engage, because look, what starts well ends well, right? So if I can engage and connect, we as sellers, we get paid to change the way we communicate. Buyers do not get paid to change the way they buy. So we have to have that flexibility. The only way I can be flexible is to know how I see the world, so then I can change what I sell at Sandler, let's say, and describe it in the way that you would like to do it. So it helps me connect real quick. It helps me identify buyer intent. It'll help me actually create emails and texts by myself. I would email you, and if Cal will start laughing. There's no hellos, there's no goodbyes, there's no words, it's bullets, right? I'm a bullet guy. That's a DC. I do bullets. And thank goodness for my assistant who writes, have a pleasant day, and all the other stuff that people who know me probably knew it wasn't me. but they rewrite all my emails to match the style of my buyer. And I even put in my email, and what comes back, I'm like, wow, that sounds pretty good. I don't know why I don't talk like this. Maybe I should have gone to school. I'm like, this is pretty good. It hits the mark right on. So I think we use technology in this way. It's all AI driven, but it's super powerful. I think you could use AI, obviously, by changing and customizing and personalizing your elevator pitch, your 30-second commercials. So when you say, well, how am I going to connect? I'm doing business in this group, but not in that department. Or I've never called on that type of person in that industry, I don't know what to say. And all of a sudden, fear, doubt, and worry kicks in. Guess what? AI is your best friend. Let's just say, how do I have a pain-based elevator pitch, 30-second commercial for this person in this industry? Boom! Now, does this need work? Because I could have refined it. Yes, but that took 5 words, and here comes a whole thing that AI has done for me. So it helps me. Now, just like Google PhDs, it may not be 100%, so don't believe 100%, but it gives you a good starting point, right? So we customize all of our 30-second commercials. In the basis is we're going to use chat, and then we're going to use our personal skills, our human skills, and make it even better. But you could also use it for just research. Hey, what are the top problems with this particular persona in this industry? Hey, what problems is this industry having? It doesn't have to be by person. It can be by industry. I mean, this week alone, I was with one of my enterprise salespeople, and they bring me in, and I wasn't involved in the early stages, so I'm coming in midway through, and I did a research on chat about the industry. And so when they introduced me, and you have to do the hellos, I said, hey, listen, before we start, out of curiosity, I'm always wondering, how are you handling the challenge when it comes to bop, 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 which was their industry? They're like, wow, here's what I'm doing. And next thing you know, there was this instant connection, and they're like, this guy really knows what he's talking about. And I did, because I tapped it into chat. I didn't know how to start. I didn't know what they were experiencing. And I just didn't want to jump in and say, hey, thanks for having me on the call today. Sandler, 50-year-old business. We train 50,000 people a year. We're really going to love it. And just all my features and benefits and all the wonderful we stuff. But I focused on them and the challenges that they were having, establishing credibility for myself at the same time. But when I'm doing it, I'm learning so much about that company that they may or may not have told me, right? So you've got that. I love using chat for creating blogs and messages, right? If I sit down and write something, I'm trying to always act super smart. But if I say, look, I'd like a 100-word blog on X, or I know that my buyer is now in consideration, I'd like to write something that says X, Y, and Z. And it's awesome. It is awesome. I asked it to write hey, give me a 2-page summary on why people should go to the Sandler Summit, which is this thing we do once a year. We've got 1,200 clients. And it was fantastic. I mean, I thought like marketing and our marketing department wrote it. It was awesome. Now, am I just going to rely on that and not go through it? No, but my point is this. It's a good launching pad for things that our salespeople are doing every single day, or we're not touching our buyer as much as we should. There's no connection. See, oftentimes sellers think that the power of my product is going to grab your attention, but it's my job to take the power of my product and put it into your world. And that's what chat's doing. But it's all based on prompts. We did a thing. If you want to scan, you're welcome to it. Right? You're welcome to have. These are Sandler prompts that we use to do investigations. It's pre-recorded. You're welcome to it. Have at it, whether we ever see you or not. But it's awesome. I've become a huge believer in that. Look, I know we've got some Q&A coming. Let me just share one more point of view, if I could, which is I think sales management is the tip of the spear. I think it's the hardest job in any organization. What I've seen out there in today's world is really hard. The turnover in a CRO role or a sales leader role is faster now than it's ever been in the past. And if you think about the sales leaders, they're managing revenue for our companies. They're managing people with different skill sets, different experiences, right? And that's really kind of hard, especially if you're a player coach, which I've got a quota and I'm managing people. So how are we doing that? Well, there's some things that I'm seeing. One, there's more to management than just funnel management. Now that's super important, and we're going to talk about that in a second, but that is for sure. The other thing that we want to make sure is that we've got, AI is going to help us do our job. If you think about one of the challenges for sales leaders, it's call coaching, right? Salesperson gives me a call to coach to. The problem with that is I don't have the time. They don't tell me really what's going on, only the perception. It's not that they're misleading me. The fact of the matter is they're giving me what they think is true, which is often not true. So I'm giving coaching over here when I should be giving coaching over here. And so with AI, you can pinpoint the predictability of close. If you now, AI will come back and say, if you ask these 7 macro questions, and there's more to it. but it'll give you the predictability of close. How cool is that as a leader? Can you imagine as an owner of a company, if I had 20 salespeople and my quota this month was $20 million, do you know what I would be doing, honestly? If Fred gave me a $5 million number for this month, I know Fred doesn't ever hit his number. So I'm going to say, well, Fred, really, Fred? He's probably 20%. Right? Mary says, oh, she's doing 5 million. I say, hey, Mary's normally pretty close. I'm going to give her a 90%. And I do this swag system, and then I hope I'm close. And each one of my salespeople up to the 29th of the month, don't worry, Dave, it's coming. But then I have to go tell the senior leader, the owner, maybe you, hey, it's not coming. So it's really hard. But if I could say, I've got a 92% predictability, it's popping, how cool is that? So AI has changed all these things for us. So as we go through, I don't care what you do when it comes to management, but just pay attention to your leaders. I think there's 3 things that you have to pay attention to: how to help them build their business, how to help them build their teams, and how to help them build themselves. They don't have the experience. So with that, I know we've got about 5-6 minutes left, Cal, and Donna, maybe you can help out. And we'd maybe do some Q&A, get Lorena back in here, and maybe we can answer some questions. But there's so many things going on, Cal. It's hard to pick just one that you want to focus in on. Fair?
Yeah, there are a lot. I want to give a very quick story of there are 2 clients that Lorena and I work together with. One of them is using, in fact, ChatGPT to find the pain points for industries that they're not terribly familiar with.
Yep.
They're putting them in the CRM so both the salespeople and the technical support people can see them.
Mm-hmm.
What you had up there is from one of our AI partners about the 7 imperatives. They have put those in their CRM. They're not using the AI part,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also causing the sales leaders to be able to ask them the questions. Tell me a little bit about who else is involved in their decision process. When you talked about the dollars in their budget, what kind of things did they tell you?
Yep.
What's the next time and date on the calendar for your next conversation, and who's going to be there? So there's no escape for this. The salesperson has to do what they've got to do, which is also pointed to the fact that we have to upscale their sales teams. And Lorena's been able to automate some of that stuff on the back end, which makes
Amazing.
me
Yeah,
look like a genius.
But it also creates a really strong tool that can then be leveraged across different teams, right? Because now management has insight into some of these factors that they didn't know before, which then leverages the opportunity for the marketing team to start marketing in a slightly different approach to try to combat the negatives and maybe target more of that ideal client, because now they have a little bit more information about those that are actually going down the pipeline. So it actually leverages all uses really, really well.
Right. And we don't have to make it complicated. You don't have to have $100,000 system to do this easy. You can do it pretty economically. So Donna, what kind of questions have you seen come in now, or do you have something else?
Of course, there's lots of questions, but I want to ask my question. All of this is it's amazing. It's exciting. It's a little bit mind blowing, and it's a little daunting. You know, our audience is a diverse group of people. Some are corporations with big sales teams, but we've probably got a lot of people on this webinar who are their sales team. They are the one-person show. Yep. So everything applies, and we get that. But from the 3 of you, what is the most important part? And I totally get the use of ChatGPT. It makes me a little nervous that it's a bit dated, and I wonder when they're going to make that current, because, you know, we're using it for things that are not necessarily data driven, and we're making great strides in what our data analytics look like and our Power BI boards, and all that gets incorporated into this. But for the small company, maybe it's the one salesperson, or they've got a few salespeople that might be feeling overwhelmed right now. It all applies, but what's the starting point? And any of you can take that question.
I mean, I will give you the 2 cents from the technology perspective, is that solopreneurs primarily, when I talk to them, they're like, you know, it's not within my budget to do so. It's not within the time that I have. But my comeback to that is, if you're not doing it now, then how are you going to scale up? right?
Right.
Because you can't really grow if you don't know where your strengths and your weaknesses are. So I almost feel like you have to take a step back, like we've said already, right? And see, well, what can I allot to that? Once you have some sort of system in place where you actually can get up to that next level, scaling up makes it that much easier, but you're also able to make smarter data-driven decisions that are based on actual facts, not just what your gut is saying. So at the end of the day, you're actually saving money, even
Oh.
because you're not wasting your time making
Yeah.
mistakes.
I totally get that. And I'm not talking about, string operations that can't do any of it. I'm talking about the people that know they need to invest. Where
Yeah.
do they start? Is it with Deal IQ? Is it with Humantic? Is it with up leveling their CRM? Probably, right? Cal, what do you see?
No, I'm going to be low tech for a minute because we've got to have the human interaction. And if I don't have a very clear, repeatable, effective sales process, all the automation and the tools in the world aren't really going to help me because I'm going to be shooting all over the place and hoping it's going to compensate for my lack of skill and process.
Yeah.
I think
And
that's true. I think if you, Donna, if you look at the 3 points of view, I probably would, not spend too much time on one. If I was a solo entrepreneur, I would probably make sure that I'm leveraging the right types of technology, putting in my practice, because that would make me as an individual more effective, more efficient, which is really what I'm concerned about. I'm a company of one, right? I think that is super important. I also would put it into that flow of work. I think the other thing that you could do very, very quickly is to preset your messaging based on where you are in the sales process. You could have your messaging baked into your CRM so you don't have to think about it. You should think about it once and hit a button. And that way, if I'm by myself, I'll trust myself. And if I can make 3 extra calls a week, guess what? That's a good thing for me, and that's what I would be doing.
100%. And there's a misconception that when you are using technology or AI, it's a one and done thing, and or that it's not personal. And it can be both, because you can leverage, it takes 9 to 13 touches for marketing perspective. You can leverage that marketing message with the behaviors that Cal is teaching you, with the technology, to have that automation that Dave's talking about without losing the personal touch, because you can still use a template that has like the core of the message by still adding the, hope you're feeling better and don't get too sunburned while you're at the beach kind of message.
Yep.
100%. And honestly, to answer my own question, I really believe that the first investment is in training yourself. I really do. And I realize that's a shameless plug for Sandler at this point, but without that process and without that system, which is now incorporating all of this technology, I'm not sure, you're springboarding off of the right things. One question, I got a question here from someone who's on the call, so I want to make sure we ask it. Angela asked, some chat is free and then there's the paid versions. Do you have a recommendation?
Yeah, so
go ahead. I'll let you in.
Lorena, please, you're the expert.
I was gonna say, you guys just posted, Sue just posted. So if you're on the messaging board, Sue Seagat, who works with Sandler, just posted the Chat GPT prompts resource. That is a great tool to use because that gives you a lot of the where to's. That's all I was going to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think most of us can get away with the free, to be honest. I mean, are there some advantages of the pay? Yes. Would you recognize what they are? No. I mean, if you find yourself not having the availability of chat, you've got to pay for it, you'll get more availability, great. But I think 90% of us can handle the free.
Awesome. Cal, you have one more question for us? We've got 2 minutes.
No, I would say same thing with LinkedIn. A lot of the tools do the free version, prove you're going to use it, exceed the capability, and then move on and get some help. I guess I would ask Dave, what 2 or 3 things or actions you think that this mixed group of corporate and solopreneurs and marketing people, we got a vast diversity out there. What are 2 or 3 things people can go do or should go do? I know not should, we don't want to should on anybody. What are some suggestions based on your experience that are some easy things that people can go do and get started like at 1 o'clock?
Well, I mean, I think we've hit upon them, but if I were just to take a couple of them, if I was a larger mid-sized organization, I would make sure that all my sellers touching revenue are on the same page, for sure. I think that regardless of technology can help you tomorrow. I think if you have a team and you haven't done assessments in a while, I would assess now, and I would assess for tomorrow's skill, which will help you bring on the right types of people and train the people that you have to fill those skill gaps for tomorrow. I think the other thing that I would do very, very quickly, we all have the technology. That horse has left the barn. You've already bought a bunch of tech. Many of it you're not using. That's why we cycle through it all the time. And do a quick inventory, get rid of the overlap. We all have overlap. I've saved $250,000 myself on overlap. And then integrate your methodology into that, and it's one and done, right? Get it one and done. Use AI to your advantage so you can just preset everything and then personalize it, as Lorena said. Those would be my big picture takeaways, Cal.
Thank you, Dave. I think for all of us, doing a skill gap assessment every year is smart use of your time, and it tells you where to put your effort. So I can't believe that an hour has flown by. I looked up and Dave said something about a few minutes. I'm like, oh my gosh. Dave, as always, we appreciate you spending your time here and sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you. Big fans.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. And, as we talk about this messaging at different points in the funnel and using AI, next month, we're talking about crisp messaging, and I'm sure that will be part of it, talking to people where they are in the funnel, not making assumptions, and making sure that their diagnosis is actually correct. So thank you all for joining us. I wish you all a great month, and jump on board with this amazing technology and reach out to Cal, Lorena, or myself, and we can certainly help integrate those systems and address those skill gaps. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Take care.